is my honor to be able to throw Donald Trump over the top in the delegate count tonight. Congratulations, Dad, we love you!
Donald Trump goes over the top. I'm Scott Pelley. The GOP delegates choose Trump as their presidential nominee.
I'm so proud to be your nominee for President of the United States.
I'm Norah O'Donnell. Donald Jr. speaks tonight, but all the talk is about stepmom Melania borrowing Michelle Obama's words.
I'm Gayle King. I'll be on the floor with the delegates who have plenty to say about the good, the bad, and the unusual.
I'm Charlie Rose. Can a fractured party heal in time to do battle against the Clinton machine?
I'm John Dickerson. I'll be at the podium as Republican officials try to find their place in the party of Trump.
We're in Cleveland with the Republicans for night 2 at the Q.
It's time to believe in the future.
Donald Trump will reassert America's position as the nation with the best values to lead the world.
Donald Trump is focused on you.
We're going to rebuild our country.
Get ready, America. Now is the time to elect bold leadership.
I'm so proud of your choice for President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
Campaign 2016. CBS News brings you the Republican National Convention. From the Quicken Loans Arena in Cleveland, Ohio, here are Scott Pelley and Norah O'Donnell.
Tonight, the Republicans nominated Donald John Trump, the 70-year-old businessman and TV personality, as their candidate for President of the United States. It was the victory of a national insurgency that wrested control of the party from its leaders, and a remarkable rise for a political novice, from declaration to nomination in 57 weeks.
It was quite a moment today, really, to see the delegation from Trump's home state of New York. It was led by his oldest son that gave him the victory.
Good job, Casey. Congratulations, Dad, we love you!
Short time later, Donald Trump addressed the convention on a video hookup, and he said he would deliver his acceptance speech on Thursday night.
We're going to hear more from Donald Trump's family tonight. But first, let's go to John Dickerson, who is at the podium again tonight. John, good evening.
Thanks, Nora. As you said, the convention planners have said that we're going to hear about the Donald Trump that only his family knows. But so far, on this second night, the theme of the convention is the same as it was the first night, which is all about Hillary Clinton and her failings as a Secretary of State, as a wife and a woman. So for now, this convention has told us that the key attribute of Donald Trump is that he's not Hillary Clinton.
And, John, we've just heard Donald Trump Jr. introduced. Let's listen in.
Good evening. I'm Donald Trump Jr. Thank you. Thank you. I'm the father of 5 young children, from 2-year-old Chloe to Kai, who just turned 9. I'm the husband to Vanessa, an amazing wife and mother, and the son of a great man. I'm an American, and tonight I want to talk to you about the country we live in, the country our children will grow up in. For my generation, this is the most important election of our lifetime, one that will determine the future of our country, and in turn, the future of the world. For too long, our country has ignored its problems, punting them down the road for future generations to deal with. In business, I was trained by my father to make the tough investments and decisions today to ensure a brighter future tomorrow. We've actually started to believe that solving our great problems is an impossible task. And that's why we need to elect a man who has a track record of accomplishing the impossible. For the first time, parents no longer think that their kids will be as well off as we were. We've lost the confidence in our leaders and the faith in our institutions. But remember one thing, we're still Americans, we're still one country, and we're gonna get it all back. We're going to get it back better than ever before. I know we'll get it back because I know my father. I know that when people tell him it can't be done, that guarantees that he gets it done. I know that when someone tells him that something is impossible, that's what triggers him into action. When people told him it was impossible for a boy from Queens to go to Manhattan and take on developers in the big city, rather than give up, he changed the skyline of New York. I've seen it time and time again, that look in his eyes when someone says it can't be done. I saw that look a little over a year ago when he was told he couldn't possibly succeed in politics. Yes, he did. For my father, impossible is just the starting point. That's how he approaches business projects. That's how he approaches life. Whether it's teaching his granddaughter how to swing a golf club or tackling the toughest negotiations, he's always fully committed. That's why the person who had never run for office before stood on the stage 11 months ago in this very arena with 16 professional politicians. And this week, that same man will stand before you as our party's nominee for the President of the United States of America. Thank you. As a proud son and family member, it was one of the great honors of my life to be able to put him over the top in the delegate count earlier today. His unrelenting determination is why he's going to become our next president, and why I know that when my father says he can fix the country, he means it. You want to know what kind of president he'll be? Let me tell you how he ran his businesses. And I know, because I was there with him, by his side, on job sites, in conference rooms, from the time I could walk. He didn't hide out behind some desk in an executive suite. He spent his career with regular Americans. He hung out with the guys on construction sites, pouring sheetrock and pouring concrete and hanging sheetrock. He listened to them, and he valued their opinions as much and often more than the guys from Harvard and Wharton, locked away in offices away from the real work. He's recognized the talent and the drive that all Americans have. He's promoted people based on their character, their street smarts, and their work ethic, not simply paper credentials. To this day, many of the top executives in our company are individuals that started out in positions that were blue collar, but he saw something in them, and he pushed them to succeed. His true gift as a leader is that he sees the potential in people that they don't even see in themselves. The potential that other executives would overlook because their resumes don't include the names of fancy colleges and degrees. I know he values those workers and those qualities in people because those are the individuals he had my siblings and me work under when we started out. That he would trust his own children's formative years to these men and women says all you need to know about Donald Trump. We didn't learn from MBAs. We learned from people who had doctorates in common sense. Guys like Vinny Stelio, who taught us how to drive heavy equipment, operate tractors and chainsaws, who worked his way through the ranks to become a trusted advisor of my father. It's why we're the only children of billionaires as comfortable in a D10 Caterpillar as we are in our own cars. My father knew that those were the guys and gals that would teach us the dignity of hard work from a very young age. He knows that at the heart of the American dream is the idea that whoever we are, wherever we're from, we can get ahead, where everyone can prosper together. The other party also tells us they believe in the American dream. They say we should worry about economic inequality and immobility. You know what? They're right. But they don't tell you that it was their policies that caused the problem. And it was their policies that have no accountability. They gave us the worst immigration system in the world, one that imports immobility, one that drives down employment and wages for Hispanic Americans, for African Americans, and for everyone. An immigration system that favors illegals over those trying to go through the process legally. And at times, even over law-abiding citizens. It was Bernie Sanders himself who warned that a large tide of new workers keeps wages low and poverty high. The other party gave us public schools that far too often fail our students, especially those who have no options. Growing up, my siblings and I, we were truly fortunate to have choices and options that others don't have. We want all Americans to have those same opportunities. Our schools used to be an elevator to the middle class. Now they're stalled on the ground floor. They're like Soviet-era department stores that are run for the benefit of the clerks and not the customers, for the teachers and the administrators and not the students. You know why other countries do better on K through 12? They let parents choose where to send their own children to school. That's called competition. It's called the free market. And it's what the other party fears. They fear it because they're more concerned about protecting the jobs of tenured teachers than serving the students in desperate need of a good education. They want to run everything top down from Washington. They tell us they're the experts and they know what's best. The other party gave us a regulatory state on steroids. Dodd-Frank was 1,000 pages long, and it's already spun off 22,000 pages in regulations. Imagine trying to digest all that before you even open your doors for business. That doesn't help consumers. What it does is destroy small business in favor of big businesses who can afford the vast number of lawyers and accountants needed to comply. Dodd-Frank is consumer protection for billionaires. We've produced the thickest network of patronage and influence of any country at any time in world history. It's composed of the self-satisfied people at the top, our new aristocrats. We can't live that way any longer. It's too risky. Let me talk a little bit about risks. The other party is the party of risk. I've spent many time with many great Americans who have served this country in the military, and they know what's at stake. When we have weak leaders in positions of power, Americans risking their lives for our freedoms are less safe. You know, almost daily I get a call or a text from a real American hero. His name's Mark Geist, and I'm proud to call him a friend. Mark was part of the security team at the annex on our grounds of the consulate in Benghazi. Mark was one of the men who received frantic phone calls from his buddies at the compound, calls that pleaded for help, calls that he and his team tried to answer, but calls that didn't save all his friends, because Secretary Clinton's State Department had ignored their requests for help, both on the night in question and even in the weeks and months leading up to the attack. It was a tragedy, and one that would be repeated were she to win the election. Ask Mark, who's fit to lead? Who has the judgment to lead? Who will take that call at 3 o'clock in the morning yet? You know, or better yet, ask yourselves, if you were in Mark's shoes that night, who would you rather call? Let me tell you something about risk. If Hillary Clinton were elected, she'd be the first president who couldn't pass a basic background check. It's incredible. Hillary Clinton is a risk Americans can't afford to take. She says she'll issue executive orders to take away Americans' guns. She wants to appoint judges who will abolish the Second Amendment. Just look at how effective those laws have been in inner-city Chicago, a city with the toughest gun laws in our nation, where 70 people were murdered last month alone, and where over 3,400 American lives have been lost since this administration took office in 2009. You know why those laws fail? Because criminals, by definition, don't follow laws. Rather than prosecuting real criminals, she would strip hard-working, law-abiding citizens of their rights to protect themselves and their families. She'll throw every possible obstacle in the path of safe, reliable, affordable energy produced in America, by Americans, for American businesses and families. Rather than being energy independent, our country will be forced to remain beholden to her buddies in the Middle East. Those are risks we can't afford to take. And when we win, we're not going to have to. There's so much work to do. We will not accept the current state of our country because it's too hard to change. That's not the America I know. We're going to unleash the creative spirit and energy of all Americans. We're going to make our schools the best in the world for every single American of every single ethnicity and background. We're going to put Americans first, all Americans, not a special class of crony elites at the top of the heap. We're going to elect a president who will work with everyone to pass legislation that will make our country great again. A president who will give us a tax code that will free the American economy and end special loopholes for the wealthy. A president who will give us an immigration law that protects American citizens and gives them jobs. A president who will repeal and replace Obamacare without leaving our most vulnerable citizens without health care, and who will do it without destroying Medicare for seniors, as Hillary Clinton has proposed. A president who knows we can't simply delete our problems, but that we have to tackle them head on. A president who won't allow PC culture to put the safety and well-being of our children and our loved ones at stake. A president who won't bow and pander to nations that shudder at the very thought of America's existence. A president more concerned with the safety and comfort of his fellow Americans than the feelings of those hostile nations abroad who, if given the option, would wipe America off the face of this earth. A president not beholden to special interests, foreign and domestic, and one who funded his entire primary run out of his own pocket just to prove it. A president who will secure and defend the borders of the United States and who will appoint judges who believe that freedom requires a limited government. A president who won't use the highest office in the land as a path to personal enrichment. A president who's actually created real jobs, who has actually signed the front of a paycheck, and who doesn't just talk about it in theory. A president who has real people's families and livelihoods dependent on his success and the success of his company for decades. A president who speaks his mind, and not just when it behooves him to do so, who doesn't have to run a focus group or use data analytics to be able to form a simple opinion, who says what needs to be said and not just what you want to hear. A president who will unleash the greatness in our nation and in all of us, who will give the hardworking men and women who built this great country a voice once again. That president can only be my mentor, my best friend, my father, Donald Trump. And when we elect him, we'll have done all that. We'll have made America great again, greater than ever before. Thank you, and God bless.
And that was 38-year-old Donald J. Trump Jr. His father's namesake delivering the speech on day 2 of this convention that I think many of the delegates have been waiting for. A personal speech talking about his father, the businessman, but also one with some red meat. John Dickerson there on the podium. John?
That's right, Nora. The red meat, the standard attacks on Hillary Clinton. But as you pointed out, he did something we haven't yet seen, is he witnessed to his father's skills. He didn't just assert that his father was a great guy. He explained how his father ran his business, relying on the common sense of the people at the building site, not the MBAs in the corner office. And then testified to it further, saying he had those people at the building site raise us instead of pampering us in the corporate offices. And why does that matter? Because, of course, Donald Trump is making his pitch for common sense and not all of this fancy learning. And that's the core of his campaign and why he says he can be successful in business and translate that to the complicated business of governing, because he has that common sense.
John Dickerson, thank you very much. Hillary Clinton and her campaign have not been idle. Earlier this evening, New Jersey Governor Chris Christie spoke to this crowd and attacked Hillary Clinton's ethics. Well, Hillary Clinton tweeted this, saying, "If you think Chris Christie can lecture anyone on ethics, we have a bridge to sell you." Major Garrett is with Governor Christie. Major?
Scott, let me get Governor Christie's reaction to that. Governor, I don't know if you've seen the tweet that Hillary Clinton's campaign has just put out. Obviously, they watched your speech very carefully.
I'm so flattered.
Have you heard it?
No.
I'll read it to you. If you think Chris Christie can lecture anyone on ethics, we have a bridge to sell you.
So witty. Of the Secretary of State who put American secrets at risk and American lives at risk in Libya and all over the Middle East. Listen, if Hillary Clinton wants to take me on, I'm happy to take her on every day between now and the end of the campaign, and there won't be much of her left.
Is that a role you wish you could play higher on the ticket?
No, it's a role I can play every day. As I just showed you, I can play it. So I don't need any special permission.
Is this election more about what disqualifies Hillary Clinton or what qualifies Donald Trump?
It's about both. It's about both, but tonight I didn't think there was enough conversation about what disqualifies Secretary Clinton, and there's so much of it. So I wanted to use my time tonight, for the most part, on that, because I spent most of my time before this talking about Donald.
But if you were to summarize what qualifies Donald Trump as this person who is a novice, who's never run for public office, not a general, completely unprecedented in the history of a major party to become a nominee, what would you say qualifies him to be president of the United States?
That prelude shows you're obviously not on the payroll. Listen, what qualifies him is he's a strong, tough executive. He's decisive. He's unafraid. He's a good, decent, genuine man who will listen to the American people and will tell them what they need to do.
Before I let you go, why do you believe you are not, and your history of New Jersey is not so ethically clouded, you can't take the case against Hillary Clinton?
Because unlike Secretary Clinton, I do not have to worry about ever having put American lives or American secrets at risk. And no one was ever doing that in my administration. She can't say that about hers.
Governor Christie, thank you very much for your time. Scott, back to you.
And that was Governor Christie, who just before we went on the air was the prosecutor-in-chief against Hillary Clinton, delivering a speech in which this crowd was shouting, "Lock her up," and "guilty," like they were delivering a verdict.
But interesting that Christie, who has been such a supporter of Donald Trump, did not get a primetime spot to speak, and of course did not ultimately get the running mate position either. Gayle King is on the convention floor for us tonight. Gayle?
Hello, Nora and Scott. We are standing in front of the VIP box that moments ago was filled with Trump family members, but the minute that Donald Trump Jr. wrapped up, they got right out of here. Governor Mike Pence is still in the booth. He is sitting there talking to many people who are in the booth. But let me tell you this, the topic of conversation all day has been Melania Trump's speech. In this room, I can tell you, people here do not care. They said, give her a break, move on. We have real stuff that we need to focus on. So I'm standing here with someone who is sitting in the Trump family booth, Omarosa.
Yes,
You're sitting in the family booth because?
I'm family. I am family. I've been with this family for a very long time.
How long have you known Donald Trump?
I've known Donald Trump since 2003, the first season of The Apprentice.
And he has just appointed you, let me get the title right, head of the African American Outreach. What exactly does that mean?
That means that we are going to really reach out to communities and bring them into the fold and let them know how inclusive this campaign is. We already have an amazing support group in the African American community, but we have to build that, and we know that we have work to do, and we're willing to do it.
Well, as you know, he's had trouble with black voters. He has said, some people say, cringeworthy things. What is it you know about him that the rest of the people do not?
You know, most people know the headlines, but I know his heart. I know him as a human being. Most people think of him as a caricature. They don't see him as a real person, but he's incredible. He is very humble, and you don't see that. But he's also very compassionate, and he's very funny to be around if you're ever around him when he lets his guard down.
You know, Hillary Clinton has said he is not qualified to be president. He comes from a reality show background. That's how you met him. What do you say to that?
Well,
she's not the only one. A lot of people have said that. He just became a Republican in 2012.
Well, there are 28 million people who tuned in every week to The Apprentice because they wanted to learn real business lessons. And you know what? She could tune in and learn a couple of lessons, too. There's only one person in this race that's under FBI investigation, and that was Hillary Clinton. And that might disqualify her, but yet she's still in the race.
And you became a Republican when? Because before you were telling me you were a Democrat.
I was. I've been a lifelong Democrat here from Ohio. But as soon as Donald Trump entered the race and I knew that we could really do this, he asked me, and I believed what he stood for, switched my party so I could vote for him in the primary, and I will be voting for Donald J. Trump in the general.
And before we go, your reaction to Melania Trump's speech and the controversy about lifting the words?
You know what? She's a wonderful human being, and we are moving on.
That does seem to be the sentiment here. People said, you know, it's a non-issue as far as they're concerned. Nora and Scott, back to you in the studio.
All right, Gail, thank you so much. We should talk about, too, what we have been seeing this week. Charlie Rose, of course, my co-host on CBS this morning, also joining us here this evening. It's been interesting. Earlier today, we did hear from the Republican leadership, Speaker Ryan, the head of the Senate, Mitch McConnell, those leaders. But that's not who was in primetime. It was the family. What's the goal, do you think?
Well, it is interesting because you had the indictment of Barack Obama by Speaker Ryan. You had Governor Christie indict Hillary Clinton. And then Donald Trump, the daughter first, then Donald Trump comes out and he talks about the idea of family. Americans care about family. They care about their families, but they care about America as a family. And they made the case that this was a good family man, that he had children that were interesting and successful, and they loved their father. And it tended to round out the profile of the man. Not only is he tough on business, not only is he tough in politics, but he is a man who loves his family, and that's an important quality in a president. And that's the message.
And has some very successful children who join him in the organization.
And his daughter will be coming, I suspect, to introduce him when he comes on Thursday.
That's right, his other daughter, Ivanka Trump, who is also a leader in the Trump organization. There has been some criticism that this convention has been off to a very rocky start, that it has been plagued by controversy with plagiarism against Melania Trump's speech last night, some scuffles on amongst the delegates in terms of supporting Donald Trump. Does it matter in the long run?
Well, I don't think. I think it depends on the speech that he makes Thursday night. I mean, he has got to come here on Thursday night. They had a bad start, a rough start. It's better this evening. But the speech on Thursday night is where Donald Trump will have his chance to say that this is my country, this is my party, and this is where I want to take the country. And all of this is simply building up to that moment for him to make the case for himself and also to correct whatever the misimpression that America might have. That, followed by the debates, is what will determine his future.
Right, and we will see that he will leave here, continue campaigning, but the Democrats have their convention next week. The idea that they will try and blunt any potential bounce in the polls that Donald Trump will seek to get out of this convention.
Indeed.
Let's bring John Dickerson, who's down at the podium, back into this conversation. John, it struck me that at the convention hall tonight were the three top elected leaders of the Republican Party. You had the majority leader of the Senate, the Speaker of the House, the majority leader of the House. All of them were relegated to speaking roles before the networks went on the air with prime time. This is an insurgency that has overthrown the Republican Party.
It is, and they're trying to find their relationship. As we take a look at the hills and valleys of the new Trump landscape in the party, it was really striking, A, that they were not in prime time, and also the reception they got. Paul Ryan came out and mentioned that he'd been the party's vice presidential nominee in 2012. That should be a big applause line. Sacrificed many months for the purpose of the party. Got very tepid applause. Of course, Paul Ryan has said some pretty blunt things about Donald Trump. Then Mitch McConnell came out. He delivered the Republicans the Senate. They control the Senate because of his work, and he was booed when he walked out onto the stage. So this is not an establishment place, and how those two work with Donald Trump, here's one key in what they talked about. They both said that they would send legislation up, and they basically described Donald Trump as a hand that would sign that legislation. They focused on the policies that Donald Trump could sign, and that's really the most they said about Donald Trump.
John Dickerson, thanks very much. It was also telling this evening, all day long we've been told by the Republican Party that Donald Trump's acceptance by video link today would introduce Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader. But he didn't. He didn't introduce Mitch McConnell at all. We're going to have Donald Trump's video acceptance speech, if you will, his acceptance speech in miniature, in full, when we come back. And we'll also have the insight of Bob Schieffer. All of that when we return from Cleveland.
Remember one thing. We're still Americans. We're still one country. And we're going to get it all back.
It is time to come together and make sure that Donald Trump is the next president of the United States.
Welcome back. This is the Republican convention here in Cleveland, but it's also really Donald Trump's convention, if there's any doubt about that. He took the unprecedented step of turning up here last night, appeared by video link. I should say tonight he did that, to say he'll be here again tomorrow with his running mate, and again Thursday to deliver his acceptance speech. Here was Trump earlier.
Good evening. Are you having fun? Melania and I had such a great time last night, an unbelievable evening. Today has been a very, very special day. Watching my children put me over the top earlier, the party seal, I mean, what we did getting the party's nomination, I'll never forget it. It's something I will never, ever forget. A little over 1 year ago, I announced my candidacy for president, and with your vote today, this stage of the presidential process has come to a close. Together, we've achieved historic results with the largest vote total in the history of the Republican Party. This is a movement, but we have to go all the way. I'm so proud to be your nominee for President of the United States. I look forward to sharing my thoughts with you on Thursday night on how we build a brighter and more hopeful future for all Americans. It's an honor to run on a ticket with Governor Mike Pence, who is an incredible man and who will make a great, great vice president. I'll be with him in Cleveland tomorrow night, and we'll be together again on Thursday night. And by the way, we are going to win the state of Ohio. And also, of course, we're going to win the presidency and bring real change and leadership back to Washington. This is going to be a leadership, by the way, that puts the American people first. We're going to bring back our jobs. We're going to rebuild our depleted military and take care of our great veterans. We're going to have strong borders. We're going to get rid of ISIS. And we're going to restore law and order. We have to restore, and quickly, law and order, among many, and just so many other things. And I'll be discussing with that Thursday night. We'll be talking all about it. But together, most importantly, we are going to make America great again. Have a fantastic evening. I'll see you tomorrow night. I'll see you on Thursday night, and we will win in November. Thank you.
Rest be assured, we're going to see a lot of Donald Trump.
Absolutely. That was Donald Trump earlier this evening speaking by video link and sort of a acceptance speech in miniature. Earlier today, when the voting was going on, the state delegates were voting for Donald Trump on the first ballot. There was a lot of enthusiasm on the floor, and you could feel it here. But let me bring in Major Garrett, who has noticed that this evening, a lot of these seats are emptying out.
That's right, Scott. A lot of the seats are emptying out. We're in the New Hampshire delegation. The New Hampshire process for Donald Trump was crucial. It was the first primary state he won en route to this improbable, historic, and record-shattering ascent to the Republican nomination. But this party is still wrestling with the reality of Donald Trump as its nominee. And New Hampshire gives a perfect example of that, because tonight when the delegates were tallied and read to this convention, who did the reading? Corey Lewandowski, who at one time was Donald Trump's campaign manager, a veteran of New Hampshire politics, then fired by Donald Trump. But what did he say when he announced the delegates? I give them to my friend, Donald Trump. True loyalty, a sense of accomplishment in the state of New Hampshire. And yet, moments later, I bumped into the most famous New Hampshire Republican that there ever has been, a gentleman named Tom Rath, who has helped elect senators, governors, and other presidential candidates in previous cycles win the New Hampshire primary. He was marching out of this Quicken Loans Arena more than 3 hours ago, told me, I got to get out of here. I'm not going to watch this infomercial. Tom Rath, a big supporter of John Kasich, the governor of this state of Ohio. It illustrates that there are those in the Republican Party establishment who are still coming to grips with the reality of Donald Trump. On one hand, Corey Lewandowski, loyal to the very end, even his own end. Tom Rath, the most important, powerful New Hampshire Republican, still not there. Scott?
Major Garrett, thanks. The empty seats in the hall led our chief writer, Jerry Cipriano, to quip that Trump is no Hamilton, referring to the standing room only show that's now playing on Broadway.
I know you've covered many of these conventions too. I always know it's usually people are dying to get inside and sit and listen to these speeches. In fact, right now we should note Ben Carson, Dr. Ben Carson, who has ignited a lot of support within this party, who love his evangelical stance on a number of issues, is speaking to a half-full audience here. Let's listen for a bit.
Think about that. The secular progressive agenda is antithetical to the principles of the founding of this nation. And if we continue to allow them to take God out of our lives, God will remove himself from us. We will not be blessed, and our nation will go down the tubes. And we will be responsible for that. We don't want that to happen. Now, Donald Trump, he understands this very well. He understands that the blessings of this nation come with the responsibility to ensure that they are available to all, not just the privileged few. This is exemplified by his willingness to take on the establishment against all odds. It is evident in his passion for the American worker. It is found in his desire to put his considerable skills to work on behalf of American interests, not his self-interest. I'm proud to support Donald Trump, an extraordinary businessman, the right leader for a time such as this. But you know what? It is not about Donald Trump. It is not about me. It is about we, the people. And Thomas Jefferson said that we would reach this point because we, the people, would not be paying attention, and it would allow the government to grow, to expand, and to metastasize, and to try to rule us. But he said, before we turn into something else, we, the people, would recognize what was going on, what we were about to lose, and we would rise up and we would take control of our nation. And I say now is the time for us to rise up and take America back.
And that was Dr. Ben Carson speaking to the convention hall. There are a few protesters on the floor. We saw a little bit of this yesterday, but the protests have been small and isolated and generally quickly dealt with. In fact, the fears of unrest in the city of Cleveland have so far been unfounded. It has been a very peaceable protest group outside the arena, and the protests that we've seen in the arena have been somewhat similar to this one, with one person, maybe two, holding up banners. John Dickerson, you are down there on the podium.
Yeah, I'm watching this single protester who has a pink flag, says no racism, no hate, and she's being covered by various American flags from convention goers here who are trying to block her out. As you mentioned, it's like last night's single protest, getting a little attention. Some people tussling with her the flag she's brought, and trying to find a way to get her out of the hall. Otherwise, there's a lot of milling around in this interregnum here. One thing I was struck just by, Scott, is this is still, though we heard from Donald Trump Jr. A lot about his father, this is still largely about taking on Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump still has lots of challenges in terms of his favorable ratings, and we'll have to wait to see whether in future nights there's more of an effort to improve those favorable ratings. Conventions are pep rallies for the home team, but they are also public relations events for the outside audience. And right now, mostly what the outside audience is hearing is about how bad Hillary Clinton is.
John Dickerson, who has been down there all night. John, thank you. When we come back, we're going to speak with Charlie Rose about the battle for Donald Trump's mind when we come back from here in Cleveland.
Take this energy from this convention back to your state, back to your home, and work to elect Donald Trump, who will make America great again.
This is a nation where every coin in our pocket and every bill in our wallet says, "In God we trust."
Well, Donald Trump mowed down the dissidents in this convention hall like a D-10 caterpillar on a construction site, and today was nominated on the very first ballot. Gayle King has been talking to those people who put Donald Trump over the top. Gayle?
I have been talking to them, Scott, and they are very happy in this room right now. Ben Carson received a huge warm welcome, and immediately after he stopped talking, people started gathering their things, heading out the door because they want to party. But Mike Moberly is from Florida, and he says, nope, I'm going to stick it out to the bitter end. A lot of people like Mike said this: Donald Trump was not my first choice, but he is their final choice. That's what you said as well.
That's exactly what I said. You know, it's just a passion of these people out here. I'm a local party chair, and I've been receiving phone calls since starting in October. Today alone, I received up to 17 phone calls from supporters in Citrus County, Florida, and each one has a story to tell. Many of them are Democrats who have made a decision to change to Republicans so they could vote in the primary.
Because you said, Mike, that this isn't just a man running for office.
And that is the difference. He's not a politician. You know, I feel that he hasn't tried to craft his image over all these years so someday he could be a politician. Donald Trump is exactly who he was in the past, exactly who he is today, and he's not trying to craft himself to be a politician. And I think that's why this movement that's happening.
You call it a movement.
It is a movement. Unlike past elections where people get behind a politician, these people are just passionate about it.
Did you see it coming?
No, I didn't, and actually I misjudged it. But the reality is, after receiving hundreds and hundreds of phone calls and listening to these people's stories, you know, a lot of people call me in the past and just would simply ask questions. These people call me to tell me their story.
It may be a movement, but what does it say to you that Mitt Romney isn't here, John Kasich, the governor of this state isn't here, the two presidents from the Bush family are not here?
What it tells you is they're not seeing this movement, and they're missing the boat. The Republican Party is changing, and we're changing changing for the future. And these are people that, you know, most of these people are people that have sat on those sidelines. They're no longer wanting to sit on the sidelines. In fact, they tell me over and over again that they've not been active, and they are fed up and they want to be active. And these are passionate people.
All right, Mike, I feel your passion right here. I feel it. I feel it. Scott and Nora, back to you.
Yeah, great interview, Gail. And what you really set up, I think, is what is one of the storylines out of this convention. This is the party convention, the Republican convention, but it's also about Donald Trump, and there's still tension there, right, Charlie?
When Donald Trump, as his son said, sat out on this journey, and nobody thought he could win, and when Donald Trump won this nomination, and he believes he'd won it on his own without the party. But a general election is very different, and he's going to need the support of the party, and he does not have, they have not convinced him that they have something to say that can benefit him and that they need him. At every step, he has to find out whether he can trust his intuition or he needs to look at a general election as a very different process. And whether he will do that will be decided in his speech and how this campaign goes forth.
But he's not showcasing those party leaders. The party leaders in Congress were relegated to earlier speaking slots, not prime time. When people tried to hire a former Bush speechwriter to write Melania Trump's speech, he sent in the text and it was sent back, and it appears tonight as we're reporting that the Trump campaign, perhaps Melania Trump, as the New York Times says, wrote that part of the speech that's accused of plagiarism.
Which suggests so far he is relying on his own instincts and intuition and his family.
Charlie Rose, thank you.
As we said earlier, the protests outside the convention hall, despite all the fears, have been largely peaceful. Our Jeff Pegues is outside the hall at Public Square tonight. Jeff, what are you seeing?
Well, Scott, even at this late hour, police behind me are on alert here in Cleveland's Public Square. Even the small protests are still being monitored. Earlier today, there was a larger protest where you had several groups coming together in this square. You had protesters being met by counter-protesters, and that's when police moved in quickly to keep the groups separated. It was textbook crowd control and what police here have been training for. The bike units rode in first, joined by officers on foot patrol, and they all moved in carefully orchestrated deployments to maintain order. And the city's police chief, Calvin Williams, was in the middle of it all, leading this operation. Now, we're only in day 2 of the RNC, but officials here feel like they have the situation under control. Just 5 arrests so far, but Scott, the true test could come tomorrow and Thursday.
Jeff Pegues, thanks.
Yes, our law enforcement has done an excellent job here in Cleveland. Coming up next, Bob Schieffer from here at the Republican Convention in Cleveland.
Well, when the recipe calls for sage, we call on Bob Schieffer. Bob?
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. This is different than any political convention I've ever attended, and this is my 24th. When Mike Pence, Donald Trump's new running mate, told a group today the primaries are over, it's time to come together, from all the speeches that we heard this afternoon before we came on the air at 10 o'clock, they were more about Hillary Clinton than they were about Donald Trump. Mitch McConnell, for example, mentioned Hillary Clinton 26 times in his speech. He mentioned Donald Trump 6 times, over and over. I mean, she was accused of everything from who'd have thought it to the diphtheria epidemic or something. I mean, if there was anything she was not accused of, I missed it. And that was what was so unusual because, Scott, American campaigns are usually won by the most optimistic candidate. And The Economist magazine just this week cited Ronald Reagan as being the best and most recent example of that. Mike Pence today went to great trouble to sort of catalog all the similarities between Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump, I admit he has his strengths. But if they're going to try to sell him and say this is another Ronald Reagan, I'm sorry, I think that's going to be a hard sell.
Bob Schieffer, thank you, Bob. Okay.
Indeed. We did hear from this crowd tonight chanting "lock her up" and calling her guilty. That was a lot of the red meat speech making that was going on. John Dickerson is down on the podium. John?
Well, and you know, another thing about Ronald Reagan is he could stick to a script, and it's ending a little bit with a whimper here tonight, as it did last night. But delegates and some of the Republicans I talked to today might be happy with the fact that this at least went off without any major hiccups. The problem with the controversy over the plagiarism is that it got Republicans I was talking to today worried again about the volatility of the Trump campaign. Donald Trump's going to do his own thing, but what does that mean for other Republicans? Those Republican senators who are running and the rest of the party, which is still trying to raise money.
John Dickerson, thank you. And we should note that Mike Pence will address the convention tomorrow night. Then Thursday night, the grand finale, when Donald Trump delivers his acceptance speech.
Convention coverage continues now on your late local news and our 24-hour streaming news service, CBSN. For Nora, Charlie, Gail, and John, I'm Scott Pelley in Cleveland. Good night.
I'm Demetra Jamal.
Spirit and energy of all Americans. We're going to make our schools the best in the world for every single American.
We have a man who understands the frustrations and the aspirations of our fellow citizens.
Let's win this thing. Let's show America our best and nothing less.